Hey guys, it's your buddy Beard Grizzly, and I wanted to sit down and take a look at the guns that you guys have been requesting for quite a while now. And those would be the Thunderlord and Nemesis. What? Well, there's nothing wrong that's going here. Guys, I wanted to cover something a little on the serious side first, and of course that is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The entirety of October looks over the goal of eliminating breast cancer, and more particularly to the point, cancer in general. And of course I wanted to make sure that my emblem, Shader, even though I've been bouncing back and forth between 3 of them right now, and of course my Sparrow also matched for the occasion. But with that out of the way, you guys aren't here for that. You're here for some guns. I get it. I understand. Let's just get to the shooting. We've got Thunderlord and Nemesis Star up on the racks today, and we're going to find out which one of them might end up being superior. First gun on the list is going to be Nemesis Star. I've got the silver bullet ornament, which I was lucky enough to get last week. The perks on Nemesis Star, though, are as follows. Extinction Cycle. On trigger pull, this weapon's initial burst has a higher rate of fire. This is the big one that people have been kind of arguing about, and it'll definitely be a big point that we talk about as we go along, but definitely keep this perk in mind as we take a look at this machine gun. The sights are Accuratized Ballistics, Field Choke, and Linear Compensator. It also has Spray and Play, Perfect Balance, Field Scout, and Flared Magwell. And the other perk on here is called Strange Gravity. When holding down the trigger, range and accuracy increase as rate of fire decreases. Kills grant bonus grenade energy. The returning contender is Thunderlord, a year 1 favorite for many. The barrels on the gun are Accuratized Ballistics, Field Choke, and Linear Compensator. It also has Feeding Frenzy. Kills with this weapon increase reload speed for a short time. Its middle tree is Perfect Balance, Field Scout, and Flared Magwell, and its exotic perk is called Lightning Rounds. This weapon fires faster and more accurately the longer the trigger is held. This is a side-by-side comparison of each gun's stats, the configurations we have, and I thought it interesting to call out that each have the same sights and the same middle tree. Both have Accuratized Ballistics, Field Choke, and Linear Compensator, and both have Perfect Balance, Field Scout, and Flared Magwell. That's just our initial look at these 2 guns, so next, let's take them out to the field. It's hard to talk about Nemesis Star and not bring up the scope, but the scope gives you a lot of information. The outward ring is actually separated into 3 parts, and I kind of find this funny because when all's said and done it looks like a red ring of death. When these 3 sections are full, this is when Nemesis Star will actually go into its low rate of fire mode. The 4th quadrant, which is the lower right hand quadrant, is actually your ammo counter. Nemesis Star's scope is definitely not just for aesthetics, it is definitely there to give you as much information as possible, especially if you compare it to the very simplified scope that Thunderlord has. I also felt I should commentate on what you guys are about to see. I call this the 9-bullet test. Really, it's 10 rounds before Nemesis Star goes into its low fire mode, but this is definitely worth looking at to see how quickly the gun can expend 9 rounds. The previous test was at 15% speed. This is at normal speed. I think you get the picture. Before practical application, let's take a look at reloads. We know that Nemesis Star has a much lower reload time than Thunderlord, but how much does it really impact it? Thunderlord obviously wins out by a large margin, and is able to get back into combat very quickly compared to Nemesis Star. Practical application is as follows. Ishtar Collective Heroic, Sepix Perfected at 320, and some Crucible. Also, for the record, I am human and I make flub-ups like this. Oopsie. For practical applications, it'll be like the wall tests, Thunderlord, then Nemesis. So how can we sum Thunderlord up? One word. control. Thunderlord's maximum capacity is 87 rounds without any additional perks or bonuses, but because of its rate of fire, dependable range, and stability, I always find that I have ammo to pull from. This is not to mention its 2 hidden perks that it has, which if you really take advantage of, help it out even more. Yes, Thunderlord goes a little bit beyond what its typical weapon tree shows you. It has armor-piercing rounds, which will pierce through targets and go to the next target, and it also has an arc firefly effect, which if you precision shot a target will end up damaging surrounding targets as well. It doesn't always take effect, but when it does, inside of say a group of Thrall or Dregs or even Vandals, the collateral damage that arc firefly can do is substantial. One thing I've always been apt to do with Thunderlord is shoot it at range. I've kind of dubbed it my short-range scout rifle. The scope is precise and it's easy to read. There's nothing else I have to really interpret from it. It's just a red dot sight with 4 little points that go in and say shoot here. Because the sight isn't closed in, I find that it's easier for me to acquire new targets quickly, move to different ones, take them out, and move on to another. In situations like we see here, I don't oftentimes find myself using that speed up that Thunderlord has, so it is kind of a wasted perk, but the fact that you have the arc firefly and armor-piercing rounds really makes it a crowd-controlled beast. Realistically, that faster rate of fire is very good for bosses and heavy on targets, but you don't need it in small-term encounters, and it feels like the gun was made for that purpose, which again is why you can sum up Thunderlord with the word control. It's you versus a sniper vandal, and you've got 2 rounds left in your Nemesis Star. How do you think this pans out? Spoilers, you wished you had more ammo. If Thunderlord is control, Nemesis Star is chaos. The best way I can describe this is with a high rate of fire auto rifle. You know how they generally kick up very quickly right away? That's exactly the status that I feel Nemesis Star fits into. The not-so-yellow submarine suffers from a lack of stability, especially in its early phases of firing, even though its stability rivals that of Thunderlord. I don't frankly have a lot of clips to show you from the 2 runs that I did in Ishtar Academy, only because of the way that Nemesis Star realistically handles. The amount of ammo that it goes through is near insufferable. I'm constantly scrounging for heavy ammunition, and when the machine gun has 115 rounds, again compared to Thunderlord's 87, in short-term encounters, Nemesis Star just feels almost non-worth it. And to talk about the scope, even though it does give you a lot of information, that's part of the problem. Though outwardly there's a lot of space that you can still see your next target, inwardly the scope is a cluttered mess. In total there are 8 firing points that you can actually call from this, and in some cases it gets a little confusing because of the small arrows on the outside. And because of their heavier yellow color, they stand out a bit more than the actual firing reticles that you're supposed to focus on. Really, the ammo counter is completely superfluous because you'll go through ammo like crazy anyway. But I guess that's good, so you know when you need to pop another heavy ammo synth.
Let's get back to the archive.
Against bosses, this is where the greatest weakness of Thunderlord is felt, and that, unfortunately, is its low ammo reserves. If you don't have any extra buffs, or you don't have a lot of heavy ammo synths laying around, this is definitely felt. It unfortunately doesn't take long to go through 49 rounds, especially once everything is sped up, and that's one of the greatest weaknesses that Thunderlord has, but it does pump out a ton of DPS very quickly. Overall damage, if everything is a critical hit from Thunderlord, the Sepix is about 150,000 damage. The other side of that coin to how quickly you can expend that ammunition is of course that you're in and out of a firefight very quickly. You can land the rounds and then duck back into cover without a real problem. In total, it takes a mere 6 seconds to unload 49 rounds of ammunition. Without extensive testing to see how that otherwise fits to HMGs in the same category as Thunderlord, I'd still have to argue that's pretty damn fast. Okay, let's answer the question everybody's got on the tip of their tongue. How much damage does Nemesis Star do at max capacity? Nemesis Star's math is convoluted at best, and there were a lot of factors to kind of take into effect. However, if every hit happens to be critical from Nemesis Star against a 320 Sepix perfected, you'll deal about 187,000 damage. It's addendum time! The trouble with Nemesis Star is that it requires that you stay exposed to a boss or another large target for extended periods of time. In total, it's 9.5 seconds that you're effectively standing out in front of a boss. seconds. For some bosses, this can be absolutely deadly. Sepix isn't necessarily too deadly, and it also has a large crit spot. This ensures that your target is going to be pelted with damage pretty significantly, and you can kind of duck and weave to dodge a lot of the stuff that Sepix throws at you. Edge not permitting. Again, the math is convoluted at best, and I just need to point out that one big factor. If a Thunderlord is engaged in a fight, it will do a consistent 1700 damage to a boss on critical spot. The largest thing to me is how quickly you're able to dump that damage into Sepix Perfected. Being the Thunderlord is 6 seconds and Nemesis Star is 9.5, for greatest damage potential with Nemesis Star, you have to keep yourself exposed to a boss, not be able to move too much, and, more importantly, never leave off the trigger. Thunderlord, meanwhile, is at peak efficiency all the time. Yes, it may be able to expend its rounds quicker if you sit on the trigger longer, but its damage is still the same, no matter what firing rate it may be at. To me, that's a major point to compare between the two of these guns, especially as we go into the last comparison where mobility is arguably most important. And so guys, we slowly close out another video. I want to thank you guys for sticking around, and I hope you guys at least enjoyed the video, found some kind of entertainment out of it. But of course, we're not quite done yet. To round out the guns in Crucible, Thunderlord for me has always been tried and true. I'm more of a fan of using HMGs in Crucible, and quite frankly, Thunderlord ends up fitting the bill very well. It takes about 4 shots to drop somebody, and the range, stability, everything else we've talked about comes into play here. I just feel it's easier to drag out the ammo reserves that I'm given using Thunderlord than most other HMGs. It may only be 33 rounds that you're given, but that 33 rounds can go a very long way if used properly. I played with Nemesis Star and Crucible before I started taking footage as well, and I am free to admit that it could be that I just still don't have enough time on the HMG, but quite frankly, it felt like it was sloppy and all over the place. I do not recommend Nemesis Star and Crucible at all. Its lack of range, its heavy kick in the beginning, plus unfortunately the time and ammo consumption that it takes in order to get to Strange Gravity is a little on the high side. Many times other HMGs would outperform me, or even primaries would outperform me, just because of how all over the place a lot of the shells that I had would be. When you pull the trigger on Thunderlord, that bullet goes straight. It knows what its target is, it hits that target, and it knocks it down quick. Thunderlord, of course, has gotten a lot of praise from me, so let's look at Nemesis Star for a couple things as well. Overall, I think Nemesis Star is still a fun gun to use. It has its shortcomings in ammo consumption and range, but overall it's a very good supportive HMG. In PvE or even in Crucible, you're looking to go ahead and fill a role of supporting your fire team more than just dealing a ton of damage, you could do much worse than the Nemesis Star. If you use Extinction Cycle to its maximum and really pump out a lot of lead at one time, then I think the possibility for heavy support with this HMG is possible. Still, on the flip side of this, you're still cutting through a ton of your ammo very quickly, and heavy ammo is still not the most plentiful thing in the world. If I gave you the impression that I hate Nemesis Star, I don't. I think it's a very fun HMG, but when compared to something like Thunderlord, I think it has a lot more to live up to. Let me level with you. In year 1, I wasn't one of the lucky guys that ended up getting a Gjallarhorn right off the bat. I unfortunately had to settle for something different. Thunderlord happened to be that something different. Thunderlord, for lack of a better way to put it, has been my go-to exotic for the last 2 years. And going into year 3, I'm still using it rather heavily. I'm familiar with it, and again, that may end up being a big reason as to why Nemesis Star is falling a little short for me. But I hope, given what you've seen today, you understand where I'm coming from and why I think the way that I do. That Thunderlord is the superior HMG. Again guys, I hope you've at least enjoyed this video. Keep your guns greased up and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. So, Unbent Tree came out this week because of Iron Banner, right? I wanna see something about the ammo counter versus like it and Kvastov. I have a feeling this isn't gonna go well at all. Good grief. So, yeah. 100-round difference. Okay. Bungie? Bungie, why? Bungie, please tell me why. Please tell me why.